When the doctor prescribes a medication, most people take it as directed and most of the time it works as expected. There will always be times when the medication doesn't solve the problem, and it's usually not due to the medication being ineffective as much as it's just not the right medication for the illness. Sometimes the doctor needs to try a few remedies before they find the right one. Chances are they eventually do and the illness is treated. Sometimes, though, the medication has deadly side effects. The pharmaceutical company Chemie Grunenthal started from humble beginnings in post-war West Germany. They were originally interested in manufacturing cough medicines and disinfectants when they were founded in 1946. Allied forces had put a ban on German companies researching and manufacturing penicillin during the war. But when the ban was lifted the same year they were founded, Grunenthal saw an opportunity to fill the new market. They ended up being the first German company to begin producing penicillin after the war, but in an effort to increase their profit margin, they started developing new types of antibiotics. The company appointed Heinrich Muchter to lead their research program. He had previously worked as the deputy director of the Krakow Institute for Spotted Fever and Virus Research during the Nazi occupation of Poland. He and his colleagues used prisoners from the Buchenwald concentration camp as test subjects for experiments, often leading to prisoners' deaths. Once at Grunenthal, though, it seemed that human testing was not his priority. In 1953, the company developed an antibiotic they called supracillin, a variant of streptomycin. Streptomycin is a powerful antibiotic, but it has dangerous side effects. Not only did it cause nausea, vomiting, and vertigo, but it could also damage the nerves between the ear and the brain, causing complete deafness. Grunenthal claimed that supracillin had eliminated those side effects, which was totally untrue. The company also developed a drug called Pulmo 550, which they claimed was better than penicillin, but it also had side effects, and it was learned that Grunenthal had used the drug on humans before even testing it on animals. After those failures, the company started branching out from antibiotics and started developing new drugs. The company Chemical Industry Basel, which is now called Ciba, first discovered the thalidomide compound in 1952, but it abandoned it after it found it had no effect on animals. Grunenthal got a hold of the compound 5 years later. Muchter's assistant Wilhelm Kunz found a byproduct while preparing research agents. Pharmacologist Herbert Keller saw that the byproduct was similar to glutathione, a known sedative. That finding led the team to develop the substance that became thalidomide. Researchers found that the new drug wasn't fatal no matter how large of a dose they gave to rats and then other animals. They also believed it worked as a sedative, which they saw as a breakthrough, being a sedative that a person couldn't overdose on. The problem they faced was that the drug didn't seem to have any sedating effects on animals. So in an effort to find out if it worked as a sedative on humans, they did controlled scientific clinical testing, right? No, they just handed out samples to doctors and asked them to report back with the results, 'cause why not? The doctors reported that the drug caused peaceful sleep, also relieving headaches and reducing anxiety. Those results were good enough for Grunenthal, and they sent the drug to market. The Ministry of the Interior of North Rhine-Westphalia approved its manufacturing in August of 1956. The drug's appeal came from its safety profile. Unlike the dominant barbiturates, doctors claimed that it could treat insomnia, coughs, colds, and headaches with these advantages. No addiction risk, unlike existing sedatives. Virtually impossible to overdose on based on LD50 test results. No morning hangover effect. No stomach irritation, and sleep that felt natural and deep. An LD50 is the dosage of a drug that will kill 50% of the animals in a study. LD standing for lethal dose. Scientists at Grunenthal could not give test animals enough to reach a lethal dose, which led them to declare the drug non-toxic. Patients recovered even after taking 16 to 160 times the recommended dose, which seemed to prove its safety. Grunenthal launched thalidomide as a sedative under the name Contergan on October 1, 1957. The company's researchers found the drug worked really well against morning sickness. The team tested the drug's toxicity on several animals, but never on any that were pregnant, since the effect on babies in the womb was never a consideration. The company marketed thalidomide as a wonder drug for multiple conditions, including insomnia and other sleep disorders, coughs, colds, and headaches, and anxiety and tension. Medications taken during pregnancy faced a little regulatory scrutiny at the time. Grunenthal was so confident in their new drug that they lobbied to have Contergan available over the counter with no prescription, and they succeeded. Soon, thousands of pregnant women in West Germany were taking the drug to reduce their pregnancy symptoms, unaware of the harm they were causing their fetus. Chemie Grunenthal's business grew as they licensed 14 pharmaceutical companies to sell thalidomide in 46 countries. The drug was sold under at least 37 different brand names. Distillers company Biochemical started selling the drug in the United Kingdom in 1958 as Distaval. Their ads stated, quote, "Distaval can be given with complete safety to pregnant women and nursing mothers without adverse effect on mother or child." They made that claim without any evidence from human studies. In West Germany, Contergan was available in standard 25 mg and Forte 100 mg doses. The medication's accessibility played a crucial role in its swift rise to popularity. Many countries sold it without requiring a doctor's prescription. People could easily buy it to treat various health issues, and the affordable price made it available to more people. That easy access helped thalidomide become one of the most popular sedatives worldwide. German consumers embraced it as their preferred sleeping aid, buying 132 metric tons or 14.6 U.S. tons in 1960. West Germans took about 1 million doses each day by 1960, making it second only to aspirin in sales. The drug achieved its soaring win even though companies did minimal safety testing, which wasn't required in West Germany or the United Kingdom at the time. Grunenthal did attempt to do testing on pregnant women in 1958, a year after the drug was released. They asked obstetrician and gynecologist Augustin Blasio to test the drug, and on May 2, 1958, he reported that, quote, "Side effects were not observed either with mothers or babies." With that news, marketing teams portrayed thalidomide as completely safe for expecting mothers. Advertisements specifically targeted pregnant women who needed relief from nausea. Doctors trusted those claims and prescribed the drug to ease pregnancy discomfort. The reality was that Dr. Blasio had not given the drug to any pregnant women during his testing period. He had only given it to women who had already given birth and reported no effects to the mother or the nursing child. The problem was that doctors back then didn't think medications would cross the placental barrier, something we now know is incorrect, and something they should have known wasn't correct, since back then it was known that drinking alcohol during pregnancy had negative effects on the baby. For some reason, with oral medications, doctors assumed they could only affect the baby after birth through breast milk. Thalidomide was being distributed in many countries under various brand names, but Grunenthal had a difficult time finding a distributor in the United States. They first approached SmithKline in French, now GlaxoSmithKline, who started animal testing and then did clinical trials in humans, including pregnant women. They found that, no matter the dose, the drug could not induce sleep in mice and rejected the offer to market the drug. Grunenthal then reached a deal with Richardson Merrill, now part of Sanofi, to market the drug, but the FDA wouldn't approve it for distribution in the United States. Dr. Frances Kelsey stood her ground against growing pressure in the U.S. She started reviewing Richardson Merrill's application for thalidomide approval in 1960 and questioned the drug's safety data right away. Dr. Kelsey raised several concerns, including safety claims lacked proper evidence, the drug might cross the placental barrier, Animal testing data was insufficient, and British patients reported peripheral neuritis. Sometimes called peripheral neuropathy, it's when the nerves outside of the brain and spinal cord are damaged and can cause numbness or tingling in the hands and feet, muscle weakness, and sensitivity to touch. The pharmaceutical company pressured Dr. Kelsey heavily, but she kept asking for more clinical evidence. Her determination ended up saving thousands of American families from tragedy. Richardson Merrill did not give up. The drug hadn't been approved for commercial distribution, but the company was still allowed to use the drug for testing. Their director of medical research, Raymond Pogge, began giving the drug to various doctors and having them use it to treat different conditions. He gave it to psychiatrists and suggested it could treat obsessive-compulsive disorder. Then he gave it to Dr. Ray Nolson, an OB/GYN and his personal friend, who not only began giving it to his patients, he started taking it himself to take power naps. The results of his quote-unquote research were reported to Pogge in no official manner. Mostly they discussed the findings over lunch without anything documented on paper. Finally, Pogge used the notes Nolson's secretary had taken to spin into an article about the success of the drug, which he submitted to the Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. When the editor responded asking if the drug crossed the placenta or appeared in breast milk, Pogge responded, quote, "There is no danger to the baby if some of it appears in the milk or passes the placental barrier." Those words were absolutely untrue, but either Pogge didn't know about the potential harm the drug would cause to unborn babies, or he didn't care. The company even went on to give the drug to even more doctors, claiming they were getting a preview of the drug that would soon be approved by the FDA. Despite multiple attempts for approval, Dr. Kelsey would not give it to them. They continually presented anecdotal reviews of the drug, but nothing that was backed up by any clinical testing. To the north, Richardson Merrill got approval from Canada's Food and Drug Directorate and began selling Kevidon in Canada in April of 1961. By then, doctors had already been reporting concerns about the drug. In 1958, a doctor in Frankfurt had reported to Grunenthal that the drug caused giddiness and balance disturbances in elderly patients. In 1959, multiple West German physicians reported circulation problems in people who had taken the drug. Then 20 Swiss doctors reported severe side effects from thalidomide, including trembling hands. In October of 1959, a nerve specialist in Dusseldorf reported to Grunenthal that a patient who had been taking Contergan for a year had developed polyneuritis, causing him to suffer from painful tingling and stabbing in his hands and feet. Grunenthal reported that it was unlikely to be caused by their drug and told him they had received no other similar complaints. When they received 2 more reports the following week and then 5 more in December, they responded by saying it was unlikely to be caused by their drug and they had not received any other similar complaints. In March of 1960, a surgeon who had been taking Contergan complained to Grunenthal that he was experiencing paresthesia, which is numbness and tingling, and hyperesthesia, which is extreme sensitivity in his hands and feet, and you'll never guess how they responded. They said it was unlikely to be caused by their drug and they had not received any other similar complaints. Unfortunately, Grunenthal didn't use those reports to consider the safety of their wonder drug. Instead, they dug in their heels and did everything they could to reject that thalidomide caused any side effects. They even got the editor of German magazine Medical World to stall the publication of a paper written by a neurologist about the link between thalidomide and nerve damage and publish an article praising the drug instead. But for Grunenthal, and especially the people who had been taking thalidomide, the worst was yet to come. In 1961, Dr. Francis Kelsey read an issue of the British Medical Journal and saw a letter written by a Scottish physician titled, "Is Thalidomide to Blame?" The letter suggested that the drug had toxic effects on nerve endings, and though she was surprised by the news, she was even more shocked that her contact at Richardson Merrill had not mentioned it to her. After speaking to him and finding out that he had little concern about the claim, she once again denied their application for FDA approval. When that letter in the British Medical Journal was seen by other doctors in the UK, 70 more doctors reported cases of peripheral neuritis to Distillers, the British pharmaceutical company that produced thalidomide under the name Withdrawal. Grunenthal was notified about those reports, and still they tried to market the drug in East Germany, where it was turned down because the health authorities were aware of its link to nerve damage. Not only that, but internally the company debated adding decoy ingredients to the thalidomide tablets and then blaming them for negative side effects, something they never actually did. Something they did do, though, was hire private investigators to dig up dirt on any of the doctors making claims about negative side effects to try and discredit them, something that didn't end up working out. Eventually, there were hundreds of claims of nerve damage, and Grunenthal finally conceded and announced that they would apply to have a prescription requirement in February of 1961. While Grunenthal was grasping to hang on to their miracle drug amid reports of nerve damage in Europe, Richardson Merrill was still fighting to get FDA approval for the drug in the US. Despite Dr. Kelsey's request for information of the drug's absorption and metabolism rates and animal toxicity reports, Richardson Merrill's representative made no effort to provide them. He still demanded the drug be approved for market, making threats to visit George Larick, the commissioner of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. That brought a response from Dr. Kelsey, where she stated that if they refused to provide the information she requested, she would schedule a hearing to determine if the application could be formally refused. The representative then met with Dr. Kelsey and William Kessenich, the director of the Bureau of Medicine, where he blamed Grunenthal for the lack of information regarding peripheral neuritis and demanded the FDA expedite their application. Instead of helping their cause, the meeting led Dr. Kelsey to become curious about the effects of thalidomide on the fetus of a pregnant woman. Not only did Richardson Merrill not receive the approval they wanted, they were given yet another piece of homework: provide evidence that the drug was safe during pregnancy. Now, most people who are familiar with thalidomide probably expected this episode to be packed full of information about birth defects, but in reality, that discovery came much later in the short life of the drug. The major problem that became the downfall of thalidomide was the nerve damage it caused to any patient, not just pregnant patients. It was while Grunenthal was struggling to keep their drug on the market at the very end of its life that the discovery of birth defects in babies born to mothers who had taken thalidomide really put an end to the drug. The breakthrough happened at the same time in two parts of the world. Australian obstetrician Dr. William McBride saw troubling patterns after delivering 3 babies with similar malformations at Crown Street Women's Hospital in Sydney. His original skepticism changed when midwife sister Pat Sparrow's suspicion about the connection proved right, and he found that thalidomide was the common factor among the mothers. He shared his findings in a brief letter to the medical journal The Lancet in December of 1961. At the same time, German pediatrician and geneticist Dr. Wiedekind Lenz documented cases throughout West Germany. He first suspected thalidomide caused the outbreak of limb and ear malformations on November 11, 1961. By November 16th, he was sure enough to call Grunenthal directly. The researchers found a clear pattern of birth defects. The victims expressed phocomelia, which is a condition where limbs are severely shortened or absent, with hands and feet attached close to the torso. That became the defining image people associated with thalidomide exposure. Other documented abnormalities included atresia of the esophagus, duodenum, and anus, cardiac abnormalities, missing or undeveloped ears with deafness, facial nerve paralysis, small or missing eyes, and kidney, brain, and gastrointestinal defects. The infant mortality rate among babies born with severe thalidomide embryopathy reached approximately 40%, with most deaths being due to internal organ damage. The research showed that thalidomide's effects depended strictly on timing. The danger period ran from day 34 to day 50 after the woman's last menstrual cycle. A single 50 milligram tablet during that critical time could cause birth defects in up to 50% of pregnancies. The exact timing determined which structures were affected. Days 35 through 37 caused ear absence and deafness. Days 39 through 41 caused arm absence. Days 43 through 44 caused phocomelia with 3 fingers. Days 46 through 48 caused thumbs with 3 joints. The drug caused no malformations if taken before day 34 or after day 50 of the menstrual cycle. That small window helped explain why doctors took years to spot the connection, but there were many other reasons why it was hard to spot. It's impossible to know for sure who was the first baby born with defects caused by thalidomide, but it was possibly a baby girl who was born on Christmas Day 1956 in Stolberg, West Germany. Her father worked for Chemie Grunenthal and had brought home samples of the drug to help his wife while she was pregnant. When the girl was born, she was missing her ears, and there was no way anyone could have connected that to thalidomide. Cases of babies born with birth defects began to rise in West Germany in 1959. The defects were originally thought to be genetic because, though the cases were happening far more frequently, communication between doctors across the country wasn't as easy as it would be now. There are registries of babies who are born with birth defects now, but not back then. There was also no internet to be able to easily check on similar cases in other parts of the country or the world. It wasn't until a few doctors started seeing multiple cases within their own pool of patients that the connection was made. Dr. Wiedeken Lenz ended up doing a study of birth defects in the Hamburg area on his own. He ended up going through 212,000 birth records from between 1930 and 1955 and found only 1 case of phocomelia that had been recorded in that time. Out of 6,420 babies that had been born in the area in the past year, though, 8 had been born with phocomelia. After interviewing mothers in those cases, he also found the only common denominator was thalidomide. Dr. Lenz put out an ad looking for children who had been born with phocomelia and ended up finding 14 cases of babies born with birth defects after their mothers had taken thalidomide. One woman had been prescribed a different drug, but when the doctor spoke to the pharmacist, he learned that they had substituted the prescribed medication with Contergan, the German brand name for thalidomide. From there, reports started coming in from all over the world. On top of West Germany and Australia, cases were reported in the UK, Sweden, Belgium, Lebanon, Israel, Peru, and Canada. Despite not ever having been approved by the FDA in the US, cases appeared there as well since millions of tablets were given out to doctors for testing purposes. Grunenthal pulled thalidomide from the market on November 26, 1961. UK distributors did the same on December 2nd. Many families still had thalidomide products in their medicine cabinets for months after that. The UK government delayed their official warnings until May of 1962. The UK reported about 2,000 babies born with defects. Half of those infants died within months, while 466 survived until at least 2010. Distillers Company paid approximately £28 million in compensation after lengthy legal fights. That would be about £475 million today. The story played out differently in West Germany. There were an estimated 4,000 to 6,000 babies affected by the drug there. Grunenthal faced criminal charges in 1968. The trial ended in 1970 without guilty verdicts after the company reached settlements with the victims. Grunenthal paid 100 million Deutschmarks for compensation. The West German government added another 320 million Deutschmarks for a total of 420 million, which I think would be about 750 million euros today. There were at least 10,000 babies born with birth defects due to thalidomide globally, with 150 in Australia and New Zealand, 115 in Canada, 250 to 300 in Spain, 300 to 400 in Japan, and 17 in the US. New monitoring systems appeared soon after. The UK started the Yellow Card scheme in 1964. That system let doctors report bad drug reactions. The US made similar changes. The 1962 Kefauver-Harris amendments changed how the FDA worked, making manufacturers prove their drugs were both safe and effective before approval, something that was not a requirement previously for some reason. FDA investigators told the Department of Justice in July of 1963 that Richardson Merrill should face criminal charges. The agency's lawyers found 24 law violations, including serious claims that the company sold an unapproved drug while lying about its safety. The DOJ declined to press charges, but the company did settle multiple lawsuits for undisclosed amounts. Spain and Japan kept thalidomide accessible much longer than other countries after its dangers came to light. Spanish doctors could prescribe thalidomide throughout the 1970s and possibly into the 1980s. Poor state control and Grunenthal's failure to warn Spanish doctors properly made that possible. Spain's government didn't admit to importing thalidomide until 2008, almost 50 years after the crisis started. The government gave small payments to just 23 survivors in 2011 after the Spanish thalidomide group campaigned extensively. Japan also took too long to ban the drug and provided inadequate compensation. Dr. Jacob Sheskin at Jerusalem's Hansen Leper Hospital gave thalidomide to a patient with erythema nodosum leprosum, or ENL, in 1964. The patient showed dramatic improvement within 48 hours. That chance discovery sparked thalidomide's revival in clinical medicine. The success in treating ENL, which a World Health Organization trial confirmed in 1971, led researchers to find thalidomide worked in many conditions. The FDA approved the drug for ENL in 1998. The drug ended up as a frontline treatment for multiple myeloma when combined with dexamethasone, extending median survival to over 7 years. Thalidomide showed great value for HIV and AIDS complications in the 1990s, helping patients with wasting syndrome and Kaposi's sarcoma. Strict controls now govern thalidomide access because of its teratogenic history. The Thalidomide Risk Evaluation and Mitigation Strategy, or REMS, program limits distribution in the United States. The program requires prescribers and pharmacies to register. Female patients must use 2 contraceptive methods starting 4 weeks before treatment and continuing 4 weeks after. Males must use latex condoms during sexual contact no matter their vasectomy status. The first phase of treatments requires weekly pregnancy tests. The thalidomide tragedy marks a defining moment in pharmaceutical history. The wonder drug brought devastating suffering to thousands of families worldwide during its short availability between 1957 and 1961. Not only with more than 10,000 babies born with birth defects, but also the countless patients who experienced nerve damage during the life of the drug. It offers a compelling look at what happens when profit becomes more important than people. The desire to make money from the drug caused research to go on the back burner, then turned into the pharmaceutical companies just flat out lying about the side effects. The people making medicine should also believe in medicine's core principle: do no harm. Unfortunately, there will always be humans who lose their way when money gets dangled in front of them, but for the most part, advancements in pharmaceuticals have created a world where people live longer and many deadly illnesses have been eradicated. So like anything else we consume in life, we need to trust the science, but it doesn't hurt to double-check the method. Thanks for watching This Is Monsters. New episodes are uploaded twice a week on Mondays and Thursdays. There are occasional bonus episodes covering unsolved cases and criminal history. If you have a suggestion for a case you think I should cover, leave it in the comments. You can always follow the channel on Instagram at thisis_monsters and purchase merch at thisismonsters.com. Thanks so much, and be safe.